What's going on there, folks? Earthmaster here on this Sunday evening, 9 p.m. West Coast time. It is Sunday, September 27th, 2020, and take a look at the earthquake 3D globe. Out here shows the latest earthquake on the map, a 2.9 earthquake, right smack dab. Looks like just below the California-Baja border region, but still shaking things up there on the west coast a little bit. I want to go into a little bit of details, if you will, on the South Africa quake that struck there yesterday. A lot of folks reported feeling an earthquake out there in Cape Town, South Africa, which sits up here a considerable distance from the epicenter of the earthquake. Surprisingly to note, that is not actually what they felt out there. That 6.1 was not what they felt, just due to the extreme distance there from the Cape Town area. What they did feel was an aftershock, or maybe not an aftershock because it's well away from this region, but a single quake in the Cape Town area there of a 2.9 that struck roughly about an hour or so. Let's see, what do we got over here? About an hour and a half following that 6.1. 2.9, yes, you can definitely feel 2.9 out there, especially if it's right underneath your feet. Cape Town, a large populated area out there in South Africa. Definitely seen quite a few reports of people feeling it. And it looks like a little bit afterwards there, they did have another 2.7 that struck there in the region. That's going to be this one right here in the blue circle. But I believe the main ones that they felt right there, following that 6.1, was this 2.9 here. I believe so, unless this earthquake was much closer to the region. But I mean, we're talking on this scale right here, we're looking at 200 miles there on this specific scale. So we're looking at a lot, 400, 600, maybe 700 miles or so. And I don't believe, I don't believe that that specific earthquake there was felt that considerable distance away. That's a extremely long distance there. But it was these other earthquakes that were felt there within the region, and you can see by looking at them there, the numerous reports and whatnot in the area. There was quite a bit of folks there feeling it. See, Cape Town, Western Cape. And what's kind of concerning to me a little bit is the area that these earthquakes took place in following this 6.1 magnitude quake there yesterday. We haven't seen any aftershock activity in here. Of course, you got the African plate here and the Antarctica plate down here, and these plates are kind of moving away from each other. Not completely away from each other, but kind of doing some seafloor spreading over time. Continental drift sits up here heading off towards the northeast. I'm going to show you guys a little plate map here in a second. But what's kind of concerning to me is this here is the 30-day map. We don't see a lot of earthquake activity here in South Africa region. Up here to the north, we do see some at times. But there's not a whole lot. There's really not a whole lot. So when you look at the history of earthquake activity around Cape Town and South Africa region down here, it's kind of concerning because they did have at one point back in, let's see where to go here. Let's bring up this map. About 51 years ago or so, they did have a 6.3 magnitude quake there. Just in the this little orange flag area back in 1969, and that was like I said, a 6.3, pretty good shaker there. If that were to happen today, that'd be some considerable shaking there in the region. And you can see other dates here, other magnitudes decreasing as we go down this list here, but earthquake activity can and does happen out here, just not all that often. But the aftershocks, or those little small quakes there that were triggered after that 6.1 yesterday, is what's kind of opened my eyes a little bit to the potential of possibly increased building out here and pressure. It's just good to be on guard if you're out there. Like I say, it hasn't really ramped up today. I haven't really seen too much earthquake activity, but the fact that these small little quakes here occurred shortly after that larger quake at that considerable distance there, and that we haven't seen a whole lot of earthquake activity, is just too much of a coincidence here. I believe it's closely related. So be on guard, folks. Here's the let me bring up the plate tectonics map here. This is pretty cool little, I mean, it can't get any more simplified than this. And I don't think my arrow is going to show on this specific map, unfortunately. But you can take a look at the South Africa plate, or the Africa plate over here, and the Antarctica plate there in the blue off to the eastern part of your screen here. And you can see the general direction of the plates here, and the arrows indicating that direction in which you're traveling in. The plate boundary there, where the ocean is kind of being tore apart a little bit, seafloor, it's called seafloor spreading. It's where that 6.1 magnitude quake struck yesterday. You got these two little arrows there pointing away from each other, just south of the African continent there, right in the orange, and then the kind of like, what is that? It looks kind of darkish gray or bluish there on my side, where the Antarctica plate is. Those two plates there kind of separate themselves over time, doing that seafloor spreading. And of course, from there, the activity, the pressure, looks like it could transfer north to the Africa plate there, and that's kind of what we're seeing following that 6.1. Not saying there's going to be a big earthquake out there, but history shows that it's possible, and it has happened before there, back in 1969, September 29th. Wow, so a couple days here. Let's see, I believe there was also another one around this date. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, those were 20, okay. Wow, so it looks like 9, at least according to this map, 9 years ago when they had that 4.1 out there. And I'm not 100% sure if that's all the quakes that they've had in that entire time, or if it's just kind of reported on just different size quakes there. But either way, it's not super common to have earthquakes in there, in that region of the world. And a lot of people did feel the as I mentioned, those probably the 2.9 and the 2.7 there that struck shortly after the 6.1. But I do appreciate the folks keying up and commenting there that they felt it there in Cape Town region. It's so weird. The other night I was having a dream about flying over a distant water, a bunch of water, headed to, it was either Port Elizabeth or St. Elizabeth, something Elizabeth. And I look on this map tonight, and this dream was before the 6.1 earthquake that struck. Look on this map today, and I can, kind of just a weird thought. The dream that I was having had that Elizabeth in it, and I believe it was Port Elizabeth. Pretty strange. I don't believe I'm turning into a psychic of earthquakes in my dream, but you never know. We'll see what happens tonight if I have any. That's a considerable distance there. It's probably not relevant at all, right? So yeah, going back here to the activity today. This here is the 30. What is this here? Okay, the past week. You can see not a whole lot more of any type of movement down here around Cape Town or anywhere in the South America region or South Africa region. I just don't cover South Africa a lot, so it's kind of South America keeps kicking in to the vocabulary here. Let's go back down to the all magnitudes here just over the last day, that way we don't get too much of a clutter. Not a whole lot of activity out here in South America. You can see the Chile region and whatnot being fairly quiet. That doesn't necessarily mean we're not seeing quakes down there, but nothing's showing up on the USGS map here at the moment. California out here in my neck of the woods, seen some activity as we mentioned there on the earthquake 3D globe. A little 2.9 quake. Looks like in the Baja region, south of Tijuana. Kind of out there in the ocean just a tad bit. The depth of this about about 11 kilometers or so. 11.2 kilometers. This area just south of the San Diego region here. San Jacinto. I got corrected on that last night, but then again, I've gotten corrected on that name a couple times since I've done videos on that. I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce it now, since I've been corrected by a couple different terms. It's either the San Jacinto or the San Jacinto fault system out here. And maybe that's not it. Maybe I'm still saying it wrong. If it is, let me know. Let me know if that's the correct one. Salton Sea, seeing a little earthquake activity here. Not a whole lot. No swarming out there. Just a couple small microquakes. And the region out here relatively calming down over the last 24 hours. Can't say that much for the Ridgecrest area, as we're seeing a pretty good increase in aftershocks there following last year's major quakes. And some migration out here along the Garlock Fault, but not a whole lot. Seems like when Ridgecrest picks up, Nevada picks up as well, and that's exactly what we've been seeing over the past 24 hours there. And a little bit of southward migration here, away from this normal linear aftershock sequence zone that we've seen over quite some time now. So that's kind of interesting here to see that migration southward towards the Tonopah area. And what's this area right here? Yeah, south of Interstate, or south of 15 here. I was just out there a few months ago, roaming around that desert there when I went to investigate that that main quake they had out there. Lots of lots of desert out there. There's not a whole lot out there. Did run across some major super solar power plant out there. That thing was huge. That kind of set over here northwest of Tonopah, just a little ways there, but it was pretty interesting seeing that out there in the middle of the desert. Had some weird glowing light inside the tower out there as well. 2.5 looks like popped up here on the map out there in Toya, Texas. And earlier, about an hour or so ago, we did have a little bit moderate sized quake out here along the Aleutian Trench area, Pacific Plate region. Little cluster of quakes there. The biggest one, of course, looks like that was at 5.6 there yesterday. So you can see some aftershock activity there, and also just kind of picking up there with a 5.2 tonight. Of course, this area very possible for large quakes, as they've seen in the past and also will be in the future. So kind of monitoring that mid-range quakeage there for some possible further movement there. And over here along the western part, Pacific Ring of Fire, fairly quiet. Some activity out there, a little 5.2 near Japan, and also a 4.8 in the Indonesia area. Did see some pretty deep quakes over here near Fiji. You can see 589 kilometers. A couple fours there, 591 on that. That's a major deep movement. This area right here near Fiji and Samoa, Tonga region, some of the deepest movement on the planet there. Occasionally we do get some deep quakes up here, and also along the area where we've seen that large quake in 2011 along the Pacific Plate, but not like they do in Fiji. This is pretty much the hot spot for major deep movement in on a pretty average occurrence as well. And normally when we see that type of movement on a large scale, that's when we start seeing things really start kicking up in the earthquake department along the Pacific plate up here. And that's kind of why we're keeping an eye on the Alaska area up here. And of course the West Coast still under the gun. Let's see what else we got to talk about here. Let's go over here and check out Yellowstone, since that's a little nightly thing I like to do. Kind of losing my voice here. What do we got here? Not a whole lot of activity here. Really none. I mean, I don't even really see any type of earthquake activity. Maybe a couple small ones over here. And in this area of the park. Then again, maybe not. It could just be some type of interference there on that station. Checking out the tremor map real quick there along the Pacific Northwest. Well, it's pretty quiet. Let's double check last night there. We had that pretty good increase there west of Seattle, but tonight go back there and we're not seeing it. No tremor at all. Absolutely quiet along the Cascadia subduction zone there. This day in earthquake history brings us over to, is that Wabash River Valley, Indiana? Indiana, that'll work. 1909, a 5.1 earthquake struck there. And not a whole lot of information from the USGS, so you kind of got to go over here to the certified Wikipedia page here on that 1909 earthquake that struck Indiana at about, looks like, 4:45 in the morning. 5.1 earthquake. Looks like it was considered very strong. Of course, that type of ground out there east of the Rockies do feel the earthquakes much, much stronger and much, much further on the distance there. The earthquake was felt over an area of 30,000 square miles. Looks like it toppled some chimneys, cracked plaster, and knocked pictures from the walls. Of course, 1909, some different building codes and whatnot out there. But that was definitely the strongest earthquake out there in the Indiana history there. As you can see with that, currently the strongest earthquake recorded in the U.S. state of Indiana. The earthquake occurred somewhere along a fault within the Wabash Valley seismic zone there. There's the specific seismic zone that you can see there, kind of stretching through areas out there, Indiana, and of course you got the New Madrid fault zone out there. Don't want to forget about that. It sits down there around the Tennessee, Arkansas, and this whole area out here. That's where those large 8-pointer earthquakes struck. Sequence of them a long time ago, not too long ago, but yeah, I'm sure glad I wasn't there for those earthquakes. Anyway, folks, we're going to jump off here. I think we covered everything that I need to for the most part. Just kind of wanted to give a little bit more information on the earthquakes out there that took place there in South Africa region. As I said, they're not super common out there. So even a little 2.9 and a 2.7 definitely shaking some nerves out there around the Cape Town area. Alright, folks, I'm going to jump off here. I think I'm going to call it a night. The live stream should be up and running. Looks like I forgot to turn off the earthquake 3D bells while I was doing that update. So that means that was probably in there as well while I was talking. Looks like it went off a couple times. Oh well. Alright, we're going to jump off here. Have a good night, folks. Please stay safe out there, and we will chat you guys tomorrow sometime. Peace.